What's up, game designers? We are about to jump into a whole new video, and this time we're going to talk about user input, turning your keystrokes into action in your game. So the last time, let me just get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. Okay. The last time we were together, we played with creating our own functions, and we've got our add up function that we had going, and maybe you created a multiplier one, which would have been cool. And we've got this stuff going on. We really don't need this now for today's lesson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block comment this out, which is a /*. Whenever you put that symbol, those two symbols together, look what it does to the rest of the program. It turns the whole thing into a comment. Well, I don't want the whole thing to be a comment. I just want this block of code here to be a comment so that the computer does not read this as part of my program. This is better than probably deleting it, because you might want to use it later, or you can store blocks of code sort of somewhere in your code document as blocked comments like this. It's a really useful trick for not getting rid of code, but just kind of making it invisible to the compiler, right? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take our player and allow us to have some control. We're going to use the arrow keys to move him side to side and avoid these falling blocks. So that's what we're going to try to get going today, or at least to some degree, just so you can see how the input works. So the first thing we need is, if we're going to have any force applied to an object in Unity, that object needs a rigid body. So I'm just going to start off here with we'll make it a private, because we're not going to use this in any other script here. It's just this one script. Private rigid body. Oop. And we're going to call that my body. All right. So we got our private rigid body, and now in our start menu we have to associate the new variable my body with what exactly, what component are we trying to access with that. And in this case we would use the get component, and then you get these little carrots or brackets, carrot brackets, and in there we do rigid body. So it tells Unity exactly what component in this object that the script is attached to that we want to access. And then you follow that with open close parentheses semicolon. So this tells Unity that the my body variable is really one and the same with the rigid body component of the player. Now, right now my player does not have a rigid body component. So what I want to do is I want to select my player here, and then go over here to my add components, and I'm going to select the rigid body component. And I don't want my player to fall through space like the enemies are doing. So I'm going to turn off use gravity. So we really only want him moving side to side. So we disable that use gravity radio button. And now I'm going to come back in, and this is where we're going to get into the actual pressing of the keys and resulting in some movement. So that's going to happen in void update, right? Because void update is where the game is actually being played every frame, however many frames per second, 30 frames per second, or whatever it is. So this is where we want to check for our keystrokes, check to see if the user is pressing keys. So we're going to say if, right, because we're only moving in the event that a button is actually being pressed. So if, and then open curly brace, enter, enter, close curly brace. I always like to kind of start with the syntax, where this is going to be my logical test, and this is what's going to happen in here in case this is true. So what is my logical test? Well, we want to check to see if the person is pressing the left arrow. So I'm going to say input dot get key down, and then what key is the argument, right? So we say key code dot left arrow. So if input get key down, key code left arrow, if someone is pressing the left arrow key, well then what do we want to do? Well, let's take that whole thing and copy it and then go here and paste it, and this one is going to be for our right arrow. Okay, so what happens if we press the left arrow? What happens if we press the right arrow? Well, for the left arrow, we want to move the player to the left. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to say my rigid body dot add force. And add force takes what's called a vector 3 argument. It has 3 arguments, but we only really have to put one in, which is the direction we want the the force to be applied in. But the other arguments are like what kind of force and how long you want it to happen and things like that, or something along those lines. We'll get into that more when we're building more complicated games. So what we want to put here is negative transform dot forward. So based on our transform here in the inspector, our position and our character and which way he's facing and so forth, the default, we're going in the opposite direction of that for the left, because the default is to just move to the right. You know, that's just the way Unity's set up. And in order to apply some sort of magnitude here, we're going to multiply negative transform dot forward times, let's say 500. Okay? And then we're going to take that same thing and copy that and put it down here for the right arrow, but this time rather than putting a negative there, we're just going to leave it with the regular transform, because that's the default direction, forward to the right. All right, so if we wanted to, we could comment this up, right, like we've done in the past. We tab out and then / and if the user presses the left arrow, the following will happen, right? So you could set up your comments if you want. I'm not going to do that right now, but in the, for saving time's sake, but get in the habit of writing your comments in your code as you go. All right. Should we try this out? All right. File save. And we'll go back to our program here. We got our rigid body. We've unchecked use gravity. Here's our player. When I hit play, I should be able to use the arrow keys now to move side to side. I'm going to go left first. Oh, whoa, look at that. Okay. Oh, if I double tap, it goes twice as fast. Look at that. Oh, that's kind of cool. All right. So there you go. Input control. And we've now got something that is actually kind of a playable game. We could create lots more of those enemies falling down from the sky, and our player has to move back and forth. We could create like barriers so he could only move so far to the right and to the left. There's all kinds of places we could go with this, and you could just see how simple it is with just a very basic script to start building your first game. All right, have fun with this and continue creating, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to come up with this year as we move through the course. All right, cheers, guys. See you next time.